YouTube. Hello, internet world. You have stumbled right into Kari's Corner, and I am so happy that you're here. Last week, we had such an amazing show, and I just want to say thank you again to our special guest, Robbie, who's got so much experience. He's told so much about the IELTS, and I'm really excited that he's expressed interest and he wants to be on the show again. So I am super excited. Stay tuned. We'll have Robbie on the show. We'll have more special guests in the future as well. So I am excited to continue to welcome guests on the show. If you have suggestions, if there are people you want to hear from, if you want to hear from a case management team, or I'm excited to have Amy Carr, our director, VP of recruitment. She's going to be on later. We're going to be talking about interviews. So 2023 is shaping up to be an amazing year. I am so excited for all of the opportunities that Kari's Corner is going to bring to shed some light on the English language and the English exam for you guys. Hello, Binta. Tell us where you're watching from. I always love to hear where everyone's watching from. Which reminds me to feel free to join in the chat, okay? Are you a nurse aide? Nurse aides, you guys have an English program being brought to you for free. Again, I always like to plug that and remind you it's for free, brought to you by Worldwide HealthStaff. So nurse aides, you've got a program coming to you. RNs, of course, you've got your program. If you're a tech, if you're an RN, drop it in the chat. Let us know who you are, where you're watching from, what's your job. Those of you out there who have made New Year's resolutions, right? If you've made any New Year's resolutions, what are those New Year's resolutions? Is it to pass the English exam? I will tell you this much about keeping New Year's resolutions. There is a tub of chocolate ice cream in my freezer, and it has been opened. Life is too short to deny yourself a scoop of ice cream or four. So let's take a look with that in mind. Hello to South Africa. I'm doing great over here. I am living the dream with my chocolate ice cream. But let's take a look. So with the kind of theme of New Year's resolutions, right? And the New Year's resolution, the top 3 in America are, and I'm sure you guys can probably name them. I would be interested to see if it's the top 3 in other countries as well. Hello in Pakistan. So happy to have you here. The number 1 resolution is to exercise more. 52% of Americans make exercising more their New Year's resolution. I am one of those 52%. Eat healthier, 50%. And then losing weight is 40%. So those are the top 3 New Year's resolutions. All 3 of these goals have one big thing in common: health, right? As nurses, you know all about these things, and you know the healthy ways to achieve these goals. But how many of you actually feel like you have time to do these things? I know you are all working so hard. You're working all over the world at all hours of the day. And I just want to put in a plug to make sure that you take time for yourself. Make sure you're keeping yourself healthy too, which leads me into today's topic, right? All by myself. Practicing alone. There's this older song, All by Myself, pretty cool jam, but it's what I kept thinking of and singing while I was creating today's presentation and creating today's lesson. Me time, alone time, prioritizing your mental health. All of these things involve being alone. But in reality, humans are social creatures. We weren't designed to be alone for long periods of time. When you need to speak a language that no one around you speaks or seems to understand, that can leave you feeling lonely and it can kind of put a bad taste in your mouth, a bad idea in your brain. It associates a negative feeling with practicing by yourself because it makes you feel ostracized or it makes you feel alone. But I can't say don't feel that way because those are your feelings. You own those feelings. However, it's really, really important to practice, even if you're alone, even if you have no one else to talk to. I see that my email is going to be at the very end of this presentation. So, or our chat manager can drop it in the chat for you. I would love to email you. Absolutely. So getting back to things, my favorite actor is Tom Hanks. It is on my bucket list to meet Tom Hanks. Okay. I am such a fan that I send him a birthday card every year. So, Mr. Hanks, if you are out there in the internet universe and you are practicing for an English exam, you stumble across this video, please just acknowledge the birthday cards that I've been sending you for 20 years. But talking about Tom Hanks, he was in a movie called The Terminal. And it's about a non-US citizen who flies into the United States to honor his father, who loved jazz music. And he becomes stranded in an airport as his country has fallen under attack. So he can't get into the United States because they're not recognizing his country or his passport. And he can't fly home because it's not safe. So he's literally stuck. And he also speaks no English. And he's from such a small country that not a lot of people speak his language. So he's standing there speaking his language and people just kind of staring at him. And he's surrounded by all of these people, but no one understands him. So in essence, he's completely alone. He has no choice but to learn English alone by himself. He does this by watching the TV show Friends. And he eventually develops friendships with people in the airport, and he observes them. He observes their behavior. He observes phrases that they use. So, of course, the English he's learning is very colloquial, right? Everyday language, not academic English, which is what a lot of you learn in school, okay? If you close your eyes and you're in a quiet room for just 30 seconds, you will be amazed at what you hear. So let's apply this to learning a language. We're going to look at 3 main questions today, okay? The questions that we're going to look at are, why is it so important to practice even if no one understands me? How can I increase my vocabulary if no one around me speaks English? And finally, how do I practice if no one critiques me or corrects me when I'm wrong? 3 pretty big questions that we have to look at if you're practicing alone. So let's dive right into the first question. Why is it important to practice even if no one understands me? The big answer to that is because you've got to get comfortable with the sound of your own voice. You've got to get comfortable hearing yourself speak and pronounce words that don't sound anything like your native language. That's the thing about English that I feel like is very different from a lot of world languages, is it's very choppy. There's a very definite beginning and end to our words, whereas I feel like a lot of other languages really flow together. A lot of, especially like Eastern and Middle Eastern languages, flow seamlessly and beautifully together. Whereas English, if we're going to be honest, it's just not pretty. It's not pretty. William Shakespeare is one of the few people who has been able to make English sound very pretty, and it's called Shakespearean language for a reason. But hearing yourself speak and pronounce these words, hello, Demilola, not sure if I said that right, but hello. Hearing yourself speak and pronounce these things is very, very important. Taking the time to speak alone and listen to yourself is really important. I downloaded the Duolingo app, which I strongly recommend, especially if you need to work on grammar, if you're trying to increase your vocabulary. Duolingo is a great free app. But I downloaded it because I'm working on my Spanish. And when I started, my pronunciation was awful. Duolingo didn't even recognize when I would, because you record yourself answering some of the questions, and it didn't even recognize. It was like, no, you're not speaking Spanish. But I also had to listen to a lot of the things. Oh, the Mondly app. Yes, I have heard of that app. That's a great suggestion. Thank you so much. But that's a really good app too. But I'm going to check that one out for myself. I'm all about downloading language apps. You don't have to. It's not, like a dating app where you have to just have the one. No, put yourself on all the language apps, all the help you can get. But on Duolingo, they have, turtle speed, which is really, really slow. And that's how I would listen to. That's a benefit of these apps that you don't get when you're working with a native speaker or you're working with someone else, because we don't speak like this, right? We speak at a normal rate. So having an app to slow down the pronunciations is amazing. So those apps are really, really helpful to help you with pronunciation. And then finally, now is not the time to be shy. That's why I said you got to get comfortable with your own voice. You're doing something so cool. Which app should I download for English? That's free. You've got Duolingo, and then it looks like Meredith has suggested the Mondly app. You can also download the IELTS speaking app even if you're not taking the IELTS. Any opportunity to speak is amazing. Always take every single opportunity to speak and practice English, which I'm going to get to later in today's presentation. But those are really great apps. The IELTS speaking app actually walks you through a speaking session, and you have to speak, you record yourself, all those wonderful things. So there's no shame in learning another language. You are doing something so very, very cool, and something that here in the United States, we don't have a ton of people who can actually fluently speak another language. And we're asking you to fluently speak English before you come over here and work. And for some of you, this is your third language, your fourth language, which is just astounding to me. So number one, don't be shy. Don't be shy when you're practicing. Have no shame in your game, right? About practicing your English, because this is so cool. And the more comfortable you get with hearing your own voice, speaking English, the more comfortable you're going to be when you sit down to take your PTE, your TOEFL, your IELTS, whatever the exam might be that you're taking. The more you hear yourself speak, the more comfortable you're going to be speaking. That's just how it is, right? Even if no one understands you, throw it out there. Okay. The next question is, and this kind of really gets into those apps and the recommendations. How can I increase my vocabulary if no one around me speaks it? If no one around me speaking English, how am I going to learn it? Well, again, yeah, you do have those apps, which is fantastic. And they introduce vocabulary at a very set rate, which is really, really helpful. But there are 6 stages of language acquisition, for those of you who didn't know. And these 6 stages are different than the stages of language development when you're a baby and you're learning to speak. But they're not super different. What we're looking at and what most of you are in would be considered stages 4 through 6. And stages 4 through 6 are beginning fluency, intermediate fluency, and advanced fluency. As far as a passing score on an IELTS or a TOEFL, they're looking for that intermediate fluency. They don't expect you to be the advanced fluency. You would score a 9 on your speaking in IELTS if you were advanced fluency, but they're looking for a 7, which would be considered that intermediate fluency. And the big difference between 4, 5, and 6 is the range of vocabulary. That's it. It's the range of vocabulary. And within that range of vocabulary is kind of knowing the situations, knowing the correct vocabulary for academic situations versus social situations. Grammar books. How do you increase your vocabulary? I know that sounds crazy, but grammar books, right? Grammar books are going to increase your vocabulary and allow you to practice grammar. Now, you can order these online. You can go to, if you have a elementary or middle or high school around you that is teaching English, ask them, be like, hey, do you have any extra grammar books laying around? English, I'm trying to learn English. You can go to a bookstore, bookshop. There are tons and tons and tons of grammar books out there. But actually, not just using an app, because I feel like, we get so used to this. The physical act of writing sentences out, of writing and knowing the difference between he and she, right? Of knowing the difference between, in the United States or in English, we have 3 theirs, which is really confusing, right? You have there, THERE, which is a location. You have their, THEIR, which is ownership of something. And then they are, THEY''RE. So these grammar books are going to help you really understand. And just knowing, speaking of increasing your vocabulary, there's 3 words right there that all sound like the same word when you're speaking it, but it's actually 3. So grammar books are going to increase your vocabulary, and it's going to increase it in the correct way. It's going to teach you about past tense. It's going to teach you about present tense and future tense, which are all 3 different words, telling you kind of the same story depending on when the story takes place. So grammar is the best way to increase your vocabulary. Studying grammar will increase your vocabulary. I can't push that enough. And then finally, a more fun way, and I know all of you are doing this anyway, watch movies, listen to podcasts, watch Kari's Corner. I'm definitely going to be speaking English because you don't really want to hear me speak anything else. Do some binging on Netflix. Turn the captions on if you're just starting. If you're not comfortable or confident yet, turn those captions on. Okay. Follow along with the captions. And here's the thing, and this is where the work comes in. It's hard work learning a new language. So you just got to be prepared to work. If they're speaking, if you're watching Stranger Things and Elle says something that you don't understand, she says a word you don't understand, push pause, write the word down. You may have to go look up the word. I like using Stranger Things, especially season 1, because Elle is also learning at the same time, right? If you've seen Stranger Things. If you haven't, might not be your cup of tea. I totally get it, but nice little plug for Stranger Things. But it's very important to write down any words you don't know. Okay? Keep a journal, but don't just write them down, go look them up. Okay? Very, very important. And then the final question that we are going to tackle today is, how do I practice if no one critiques me or corrects me when I'm wrong? And this is tricky because you don't want to form bad habits, right? You don't want to be mispronouncing something. I know that's a really strong fear, especially with my Filipino people, my Filipino fans out there in the universe. So it's kind of the fear that you're going to say it incorrectly. So first and foremost is, one thing that people often do is they'll memorize something instead of learning the concepts. You can learn a phrase, but try to recognize the phrase or replace words in the phrase that make sense. Record yourself saying these phrases, answering these questions, practicing these phrases. There's a lot that you will catch just by listening, because a lot of you will say, and in part of language acquisition, we listen and comprehend faster than we are able to speak. Speaking is like the last part of language acquisition. Okay. So when you hear yourself, you're actually going to be able to pick up on your own errors. So I've talked to so many candidates who have found success in simply recording themselves and going back and listening. I know it's awkward. Trust me. It's very painful for me to go back and watch Kari's Corner sometimes. But I do it because I want to make sure that I'm putting together a quality product and I'm doing the best that I can for you. Okay? Record yourself. Next step that I have for, practicing with no one critiquing me when I'm wrong. Okay? The next step for that is going to be to translate whatever you see in your mind. So if you have a commute to and from work, look around you and what are the English words associated with what you see? What is the English word for the building that you see? What is the English word for the food that you see, for the vendors that you see? What are they selling? Are they selling clothes, purses, shoes? Think of those English words and identify it, not just in, I mean, obviously in your own native language, you don't even have to think about it. Start programming your brain to think of these things in English when you see them. Okay? The faster you are able to force yourself to think in English, the faster you will learn English. A lot of people just try to skip this step. Okay? You think that you just hear it and then the next thing is you should be able to speak it. You've got to be able to form it in your brain first. This is what happens. So a lot of people, when they're learning, will have a lot of verbal pauses because you're searching for those words. You didn't take enough time training your brain to think in English, right? And that's why I tell people before they go into their exam, for at least 30 minutes before your exam, speak only English. You've got to switch your brain over so that it's ready when you go in to take that test. Okay, because if you go straight from native language, and then boom, you got to start speaking English, that's hard. That can be, your brain's like, whoa, I'm not ready for that. Okay, good evening. Hello, Marlene. So make sure you're training your brain, and you can do that silently. You can do that without anyone else to help you. And if you're driving by something, again, this is where you got to write it down. If you're driving by somewhere and you're like, and you see something, you're like, I don't know the English word for that. Write it down in your native language and then kind of draw a blank. Like, I don't know the English word for this. I need to figure out what the English word for this is. Okay. Train your brain. Read an article or a book out loud. That's the third tip right there. Then you know what you're saying is correct. You're working on multiple things here, which is what I love about making people read out loud. I did this with my high school students. I made them read out loud, okay? Because it works on A, fluency, the rate at which you read. B, it works on your reading skills, your reading comprehension skills. C, it's going to work on listening because you have to listen to yourself read, right? And then D, it's going to work on your speaking. It's working on your pronunciation. It's working on those little things that can be difficult to work on and prepare for when you're preparing for your speaking exam. Reading an article, a book, get your hands on a play or a movie script. If you have a favorite, you can get all of these movie scripts online for free. They're published. People have taken the time and they've written them down. Read it out loud. Pretend to be a character. If you have a child in your house and you do want to practice with somebody, have someone practice with you. But reading out loud is massive. I mean, that's one of the biggest things. That's one of the first things we start with when we're teaching our own children to read in our native languages, right? Is you make them read out loud. That way we know that you're reading the word correctly, you're pronouncing the word correctly, you're putting the right emphasis on the word. It shows comprehension on how you read it, right? So many benefits. I mean, if anything, one of the best things I can tell you to practice is read out loud. If you're in that step one and you're just trying to find comfort in hearing your own voice, record yourself reading something out loud. Huge, absolutely massive. Actors and actresses do this. They'll record themselves reading scripts, see how they sound, all that kind of stuff. So everybody, don't think like you feel weird and awkward doing it. Everybody, Tom Hanks probably does it. Makes me want to do it. If Tom's doing it, I need to do it. Right? So here are some fun and final tips. I'm saying hello to everyone. Hello, Amir. Some fun and final tips, especially for those of you who are all by yourself in preparing for this English journey. Number one is be prepared to feel like an idiot. Yep, I feel like an idiot every day. And I am perfectly okay with it. I am 100% fine. When I'm practicing my Spanish, I get the weirdest looks from my husband. But I'm like, hey, you married me, buddy. You know what you signed up for, right? But be okay with it. Be prepared to feel silly It's okay, because remember, what you're doing is so amazing. I can't drive that home enough. It's so amazing. And if anybody tries to kind of pick at you or make fun of you because you're practicing English, or they think you're doing something wrong, no, no, no. You send me an email. We will Google Meet, and I will tell them, don't you do that. That person's awesome. Another thing that I really want to point out is, don't be offended or discouraged if you're corrected. So if you do get the opportunity to practice with a native speaker, right? Don't be offended if they correct you. Don't let that like cut you to your soul. Like, oh my gosh, I've disappointed them. I've done something wrong. Think about yourself. Think about it. If Kari Cooper, I took Kari's Corner live and direct to your country, and I try to say hello to you in your native language, and I end up just butchering it, which, let's be honest, I probably would you be angry with me for messing up your language? No, you understand. This isn't her first language. Okay. She's learning. Same thing with a native speaker. A native speaker correcting you is not them being offended by how you've said something. It's simply them trying to help you. You have to, and that's really, really hard, because as nurses, you spend all day helping people, and it can be really hard for you to accept help. But this is something that you need to have help with, and that is totally okay. 100% okay. So be okay with accepting help, with accepting corrections. Be okay with making mistakes. You have to put yourself out there and make mistakes to learn. Okay. And then finally is, don't be scared to my thing is blocking my final question or my final statement. And it's, don't be scared. Oh, there's my thank you. I can't see my final note. Don't be scared to try. There it is. Gotta love being live, right? Don't be scared to try. Don't be scared to put yourself out there. You've got to get over that fear, because when you have that fear of speaking English and you have that trepidation, you're going to carry that with you into your interview. And then you're going to continue to carry it over into the, don't be scared to try. Thank you so much, Charmaine. Ugh. What a gem. Thank you so much. Don't be scared to try. And the reason I'm saying that is because if you bring that fear, you can bring that fear with you to the United States. And you don't want to sound scared to speak to your patients, right? You don't want to sound scared to speak to your coworkers. You want to appear confident. And so don't be scared. No reason to be scared, because again, I can't say this enough. What you guys are doing is amazing. I am so blessed and so grateful for each of you and the effort that you guys are putting into this, because man, it just astounds me at the abilities that you nurses have and you nurse aides have, and just all of the amazing things that you guys are doing and that you're going to bring to the United States. So finally, I'm going to put one final plug in for the free program that Worldwide Health is bringing you. You can work with me in order to have one-on-one speaking sessions. You do have to complete our 4-week program, but the 4-week program focuses on preparing you for your English exam. Whatever English exam you're taking, we focus on preparing you for that exam. So Jacqueline, thank you so much. Thank you. I'm so happy to give you those tips. I love it. I absolutely love any help that I can give you guys. But that is going to wrap it up for another week here in Kari's Corner. For those of you preparing for your English exam, hang in there. Hang in there. It is going to take work. It's going to take dedication. I'm so glad this boosted your confidence. That is the best news that I could ever get. That's everything that I want to do for you, is make you feel comfortable and confident in the English language. If you're interested in signing up for the free, again, I have to remind people, it is a free course brought to you by Worldwide Nurse Aides. You will start the program in phase what's called 9B. RNs, you start in what's considered phase 4, is when you have the opportunity to start working in the English program. So if you have any questions about the English program, if you have questions about what exam to take, again, I'm going to put that plug in to make sure you talk to your case manager. It's very, very, very important. And please be patient as we try to verify with the various boards of nursing. Some of them are more responsive than others in getting back to us and clarifying what exams are accepted, what exams are not. So please, please, please make sure you check with your case manager. I would hate for you to take an exam and it's not accepted by the Board of Nursing, so that of the state you're going to. So please make sure you check with that. But all of you, please sign up for the free English course brought to you by Worldwide HealthStaff Solutions. Feel free to reach out to me via email. Tracy put that in the chat for us. Big shout out to Tracy. He's here every week. You guys don't see him, but he's such a rock star behind the scenes. Thank you so much for tuning in to Kari's Corner today. I am Kari. This is my corner and my backwards sign. For some reason, it's backwards today. Sorry about that. But thank you so much. I am reminding you, don't face the corner, face the world with Worldwide HealthStaff Solutions. Signing off again in 2023. So glad you appreciate the show, and I will be here for tips again next week. Thanks, everyone.